address you and to let you get to know a little bit about me. My name is DeKemper. My husband, where is he? Oh, there he is. My husband Stan is here with me tonight, as well as my sister. I am a lifelong Hoosier, was born and raised in Indiana. I'm originally from a little town up north called Elkhart. I don't know how many of you have ever heard of Elkhart, but we're not too far from Notre Dame, and we're responsible for Alka-Seltzer, RV, and band instrument. It's actually the band instrument capital of the world, and it is a town that currently is being devastated as a result of job loss that we're experiencing in the state. I am an ex-police officer. I spent 9.5 years with the Elkhart City Police Department. I've been here in Indianapolis for 18 years, and I'm currently a Pike Township resident. My husband and I, our sons, not all of them live with us. We have a lot of them. We have 6 boys, ages 33 to 10, and the 10-year-old, his nickname is Whoops. But he's been a blessing to our lives and helped to settle us quite a bit and put our focus back on family when he came along. I have worked for a long time since I've been in Indianapolis with the state legislature on healthcare issues, advocating for healthcare for the uninsured and for the working poor. And I am proud to say that I've been able to work both with Republicans and Democrats in helping to pass key legislation in Indiana. And quite frankly, during the deliberations around the HIP program, I was one of the main behind-the-scenes people who worked with the Democrats to get them to come more to the middle and to accept the language in the bill and passage of that bill. And I'm very, very proud of that. I currently am Vice President of Diversity and Special Projects for a company called Centene Corporation. And it is it's a healthcare insurance company. Well, let me tell you how I got that job. I went to the CEO and I said to him, they did not have a foundation in Indiana where they were giving money back. And I contacted the CEO of Centene Corporation and I said, if you're going to make your money off of the people in our community, you should at least give back to the community. And he challenged me to come work for him and establish the Centene Foundation for Quality Health Care. And I did that. After that foundation was established, he then offered me the opportunity to move into an area which I love, and that is working with small businesses to invest in them and to help them grow. So I actually find small businesses in healthcare, and I go back and I lobby and convince our CEO that we need to put money into these businesses and grow them so that we can buy for them. And why do I want to run for state representative? Well, I can tell you I've never run for office before, but I've decided that it was time for me to stop working behind the scenes and to come forward. You know, I love small towns and I love small town values. Last year, before I decided to run, I was invited by some friends of mine that happen to live in Speedway to attend the town hall meeting hosted by Senator Young. And the first thing that struck me as awesome was the fact that there was standing room only in that gymnasium. And I thought, you know, if we could figure out how they keep parents so engaged and how the Speedway school system has the success that it has, if we could just figure out how to do that and teach the other school systems that, then we've got something going on. And the move at that time and the conversation that tried to creep up at that meeting was around consolidation. That conversation wasn't allowed to be had. And I was so moved by that when I went home that night, I wrote a letter, and it's actually posted on my website today, and I said to my husband, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go ahead and run. Because I believe that your votes are not to be taken for granted. You know, sometimes people become so complacent and content that they forget that they have to work for the people that they serve. When I look at the numbers, I've spent time at the township trustees' offices in both Pike and in Wayne Township. And what I see is tripling of the numbers of children who need free and reduced lunch. That tells me that the poverty level is creeping up. That's what that tells me. When I looked at the numbers, I saw that we have 21.7% of our children are living in poverty, and that is unacceptable. When I look at what the unemployment rate is, well, more importantly, let me tell you this. Speedway residents on average earn about $37,000 a year. And this is reported by the U.S. Census. The rest of Marion County on average is making about $40,000 a year. That's not acceptable. Somebody has to be willing to stand up and fight. I can tell you that many of us would love to be in a position where we could pay $15,000 a year into our retirement income, and our boss pays $62,000 within an 8-year period. How many of you would like that job? I'd love that, but that's not right. It's not right. So for too long, I think we've watched incumbents move towards complacency. It's our job, it's my job as a legislator to understand the pieces of legislation that I am going to be voting on so that you all aren't stuck with unintended consequences. That's my job. That's what I'm supposed to do. It's my job to remain accessible. It's my job to answer to you. It's my job to meet you where you want to be met. I have knocked on, not personally, with my team, I go out every weekend. We've knocked on 6,000 plus doors. I've sat at many kitchen tables. I've met people in McDonald's. And I will tell you, throughout the entire district, from 96th Street to the north to Morris Street to the south. And I will tell you, there's a lot of things that we all have in common. And that is that we want to take care of our families. We want our kids educated. We want to be able to earn a decent wage, a livable wage. We want to be able to ensure that our babies are allowed to go to school a full day. That's where our tax dollars should go. Our kindergartners, full day. And when we talk about caps, where's the time? I'm sorry. Thank you.
And now, Phil Finkel.
I wonder why you wear that.
The first question, well, actually several questions are all related, and I think we might just go down the line here. I think we've kind of heard this, but anyway, the question is, what are your feelings about consolidation of the services of speedways, schools, libraries, and the town management? Michael Young.
Well, since I'm the one that got the language out of the bill, I would be opposed to consolidating speedway schools, libraries, and anything else.
I also would be opposed if Speedway is doing a great job that it's doing with the schools and the libraries. I don't see any advantage to consolidating these services.
Emulation.
I would be opposed and have been since day one.
I'm very much opposed to any consolidation of these schools, the libraries, or the Wayne Township Fire Department also.
As those of you I met last year know, I am very adamantly loyal to Speedway. My husband is technology director for the school system. We have something very special here, and I will fight to keep Speedway Speedway.
As a Speedway resident, I too am opposed to the consolidation of the Speedway.
Ladies and gentlemen, I likewise am opposed. Ladies and gentlemen, I likewise am opposed to consolidation.
All right, the next question, these are sort of at the state level. The first one concerns raising the driving age.
Well, I don't know. I know that they're having hearings on it down at the State House right now. I don't know the issue that they're looking at about raising the driver age. If they want to raise it to 18 or 21, I would be opposed to that. If they want to put restrictions on when you're younger, when you get permits, when you start out, whether you can have other kids in your car, you can drive at night, those things I think are important to look at. But since I don't know exactly what the bill talks about as to what age, I'd be hesitant to make a point, although I think we do have a problem if we look at the really young drivers, especially right after they get their permit.
course, I haven't had a chance to look at the bill either. I think it's a matter that merits some exploration, because, I mean, we do know that the younger drivers are the ones that have the most accidents. So I wouldn't have a definitive answer on that one, but I do think it merits some definite exploration.
Voided driver's license and learner's permits. We have had 2 meetings. When I walked into that room, I thought, why are we going to be even looking at raising the age? 6% of our drivers on the road are in fact 15, because you can get into the process at the age of 15. Are 15 to 19 years old. They account for 24% of the accidents on the road. Principally because I see a few of you out there with gray hair and good age. They used to have driver's education in high school. They don't do that anymore. I've had several conversations with parents, and when we break tonight, I'd love to hear what you have to say, because we have a meeting coming up, I believe it's next week, 14th, another meeting. The problem is that parents are saying, don't raise the age. I'm tired of being a chauffeur. I want my kids to have it 16 and a half, 16 in 1 month. And I don't want to have to chauffeur them. Then I ask the question, what do you think about extending the number of hours that they have to have an elder or someone over 25 log those hours behind the wheel? And they're talking about, once they get their driver's license, they still are on a probationary period, but they have to log maybe 30 to 50 hours behind the wheel. And one mother said to me, are you kidding me? I'm not going to ride with my son. He scares the daylights out of me. Excuse me. He scares you, but I'm supposed to be comfortable with him on the road? Explain that one to me. Well, long story short, I'd love to hear what you've got to say, because we are considering, and when you've got a woman who sat there last meeting and testified, she was driving right after school got out. She had a 3-year-old daughter in the back seat. The young man who hit her, and her daughter died. He was 17 years old. And she said what blew me away was just 6 months earlier, he had been in a 1-car accident in which his friend, teenage rider, suffered serious bodily injury. And she said, and there was no punishment. We need to take these immature drivers off the road, she said. Truth of the matter is, it's something that we do need to look at, seriously.
The next.
Yes.
I have been following what's been going on with the young drivers, and some of what they're talking about is moving the age to get your driver's license from 16 in 1 month to 16 in 6 months, and having actual more time in driver's training actually on the road. What we have now is somewhat of a graduated type of driver's license, because if you have a young person with a driver's license, they're not supposed to drive with another teenager in the car. We know the greatest cause of traffic accidents among teens is the fact that they're distracted. They have friends that are in their car and they're not paying attention, they're on the cell phone, and heaven forbid we even have them texting and driving. So I think what we have to do is not one size doesn't fit all, because we have to balance that with the fact that there are a lot of families whose children work, and those kids work and they help to support the family. So what I would recommend as an option to consider are more restrictions on who can be in the car, maybe to and from work, to and from schools. Make it a longer period of time before they're allowed to have other riders in the car with them that are young people, and also pushing the age a little further before they actually get their driver's license. I happen to be one of those who did have driver's training in school. I think that may be something that we need to look at, is how do we mandate driver's training.
Thank you. Now, The next two are somewhat related, apparently. This is for the state legislators, and asks, what's your position regarding crime and addiction? And it goes on to say, how would you pay for addiction treatment without taxes? I'm assuming they mean without property taxes. I don't know. That's what it's doing.
I think that one of the things we have to realize is substance abuse is an addiction. And substance abuse treatment is necessary. We can't continue to keep locking up and building bigger prisons. So we have to look for ways in which we can provide substance abuse treatment, as well as, if you notice today, the mental health parity bill passed as well. And, you know, as far as how we pay for it, it's a complicated question. I think we need to also look at expanding insurance coverage under the area for substance abuse treatment. Right now it's very limited in scope and what you can get, both inpatient and outpatient status. We need to look at diversion programs that would mandate and push towards treatment for substance abuse. And then we also need to look at more of the supplier type of issues and not so much on the individual who's caught, who has been using substances. I think it's something that has touched many, many homes, and it's serious, and we need to address it.
Where do you start when you fight crime? It's everywhere. It's growing, no question. When it comes to addiction, you have, there are ways to pay for it, and those ways are really rather simple. Judges have an opportunity when people come before them and are convicted of adjudication. They have the ability to levy fines, and those fines, those fees could go back into that kind of treatment. But the courts have never really done that. Judges are not big in Marion County on levying fines and fees. They just, for whatever reason, when I was on the city county council, we locked horns with the judges on more than one occasion because they refused to generate revenue from fines. Now, these are not taxes. These are people who have been caught doing things wrong. They've gone through the court system, and they're entitled to levy fines. And the judges haven't done that. We can't do that. One thing that I have proposed, that I'm having a bill drafted to make parents more responsible for young people, because I think we need to start at an earlier age getting these students who have been expelled, suspended from school, whatever reason, they're truant, they're out on the streets. We need to have parents, at least during school hours, be more responsible for these students we find on the streets. I think that's one way we start, maybe addressing the crime issue and hopefully the addiction issue.
As I mentioned earlier, I've been doing addiction counseling for the last 11 years. So, first of all, I want to say that I look upon addiction as a disease, and the disease needs to be treated just like any other disease, like diabetes, cancer. But when someone who is addicted violates the law, then of course they do need to be prosecuted. If they have a DUI, they need to be prosecuted. As far as the funding, I would agree that the court system has its own means of funding through fines. I also think an additional tax on alcohol would be a logical kind of tax to help fund treatment for people who are addicted. I think that the kind of drug court system that I've seen, especially in Monroe County, where I'm more familiar with it, can be very effective for those addicts and alcoholics who have time and time again, they've made efforts, but they can't seem to overcome the disease, and they keep repeating the same behavior. Having the court, having that as an option where people are under a mandate for 2 or 3 years, you have to be in intensive treatment. If you're not, you end up going to prison. Gives some of those folks more incentive to stick with the treatment, to benefit from it. Of course, some of them end up going to prison, but that's the normal consequences. So that would be the approach as far as I'm concerned.
As I just said earlier on my drunk driving bills, I mentioned that alcoholism is our problem. And people who drink and have that problem, they're not going to be able to solve it on their own. They're going to need help. 2/3 of everybody who dies on our highway is caused by a repeat drunk driver, and that person has a problem with alcohol. 10% of all people who are caught drinking and driving never ever do it again. So you can see 90% of people who are caught go back out and drink and drive. And I think we have to get those people help. The next thing I want to work on is finding a system that we can use when we pick them up the second time. Is use some system that we can get them where we can try to solve their problem for them. It's got to come from them first, but we got to do everything we can. And I don't mind spending some tax dollars on that because I don't want you to die, or a family member, or me to be killed on our highway. We've got to take care of these people and get their problems solved. If we can solve their alcohol addiction, we can save a lot of the problems that we see on the street. When it comes to other drugs, there's 2 or 3 things that I think are important. One is to make sure that we do everything we can to keep the supply down, and it's difficult. But 3 years ago, I was the author of our meth bill. When you go buy your cold medicine and stuff, you may be mad at me. They have it behind the counter now. That was because it was so easy to make meth out of the cold products. And this is probably the most addictive substance that we have. Using it once or twice can make a person addictive. And it destroys their life in a short period of time. If you've ever seen these people, somebody who's 28 years old and you see them 1 year on meth, they look like they're 57. No teeth. The skin has changed completely. But hopefully my bill is working because we've cut over 1/2 of the meth labs in the state of Indiana by having one bill to control that. The second thing, I think, is what our governor has done. He does do some good things. He started the meth rehabilitation inside the prison. If a prisoner wants to go and get out, we've talked to the prison officials, the people who go through this program, the recidivism rate is very, very low. If we can keep people from coming back to prison, that saves us money, but it also protects us on the outside. The third thing is we have to get to our kids at some point because of the peer pressure that's on them. Once they try these drugs like meth or coke, these things are very addictive, and they do it because of peer pressure. I had a bill a few years ago, and Governor Biden, after I didn't get it passed, I don't know why he didn't support it the first time I had to come through, wanted to get it passed, and I thought it was important. If we could have random drug, just like we do for our sports, drug inspections of our kids. One time a year, the state would pay for it, then the school could pay for it. They don't have to, but there could be a second one. That would keep every kid in school on notice that at least once during the year, we're going to test you for drugs. And second, there may be a repeat, so that if you're tested early in the year, you're not sure that it's not going to come towards the end of the year. So we have to realize the peer pressure it's on kids and try to counterbalance that by other things that will keep them from getting on it. And the final thing is this. In Indianapolis today, our problem is not so much with our citizens as it is from gang members from New Mexico, Arizona, and California who come here and set up shop. We need to give our prosecutor every tool that we can give him to get these gang members who come to our fine city and exploited our kids with drugs by getting them arrested and getting them off our streets. And they're running wild. Look at the people who are connected with these people. They're not from our state, but they come from other states, and they're using gangs to sell their drugs. And it's killing our kids, it's killing our communities, and it's time that we think of innovative ways to try to stop this mess.
And this next one concerns all 4 of you over here. They're individual ones, but I think I'll just start with Charles. It concerns the transfer of properties from Wayne Township to the Wayne Township school systems that occurred back in 2006 or 2007. Charles, would you like to comment on that?
First of all, I was there at that meeting, it's a board meeting, and the fire department properties were transferred. And if we go back and we look at the minutes of that meeting, we'll discover that I, as a resident, taxpayer, and citizen, stood up and asked each board member present to please reconsider doing that. Thank you.
I was part of the board that voted to transfer the Wayne Township Fire Department Training Center to the Wayne Township School District. And the reason for that, at that time, we were under the threat of consolidation, and I felt it was in the best interest of Wayne Township taxpayers to keep the property in the hands of Wayne Township taxpayers. There was a threat of the property being sold off by the city to pay down countywide debt for fire service, pensions, and so forth. So that decision was made to ensure that that facility stays in the hands of the taxpayers that paid for it. Thank you.
Well, as a Speedway resident, I was pretty angry when I heard that the Wayne Township schools were the ones that benefited from something that came out of Wayne Township that should have rightfully belonged to all of us. It was just the largest asset in the township history that was essentially given away. Now, what's it being used for? I was out there today. There's nobody there. It would have made a wonderful community center or events venue, but instead, Wayne Township schools got it. I'm not sure how it's being used, but it's certainly not benefiting anyone here in Speedway.
I was on the board at that time that this was approved, and my main concern was that if the volunteer fire department members have made many projects to raise money to erect these buildings and to maintain them, and they have worked hard for many, many years, and I was opposed to a power grab by the city to come and get these. I wanted to keep control of those buildings and all that property in Wayne Township where I think they belong, and that's why I voted for it.
Well, that's all the time we have for questions. I'm sorry I didn't get through all of them, but I'd like to thank these candidates up here again. We'll all
I hope that all of you will have an opportunity, if you need to speak to one of these candidates about any questions, and you can do that as a participant. Instant refreshments, which are provided back there. They are provided by two of our candidates up here tonight. You'll see the names are on the table. There are, as several of them mentioned, there are candidate materials over there. Feel free to mingle in the back. I do ask that the members of the Neighborhood Association kind of watch the time, and it's 25 minutes to 9. Reconvene up here, and I think our meeting will be short enough and not disrupt the rest of you if you want to stay back there and ask some more questions and socialize. That will be fine. I have no problem with that. And please, thank all of you for coming tonight. I found it very beneficial. Thank you, candidates, for taking the time to come tonight. I know everybody's party. I thank you all.